The acupuncturist is not attempting to add anything or take anything out of the body. The acupuncturist is only attempting to restore normal balance and allow nature, or God, if I'm allowed to say that, to heal the body as the body was intended to heal.
Welcome to Personalized by Vitamin Lab, the show where we dive deep into the world of personalization in healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser. Please remember that the following discussion is for educational purposes only, and it's not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Speak with your healthcare practitioner first before integrating anything that you learned today. Join us as we explore the remarkable stories, breakthroughs, and possibilities that come with the pursuit of personalized healthcare. Welcome back to another edition of Personalized. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, I had an excellent chance to chat with Dr. Robert Bartiz. Dr. Bartiz has been a chiropractor since 1985. He has a very holistic approach to practice. He uses nutrition therapy, herbal therapy. He's certified in acupoint physical therapy and does pet acupressure. He's got such a cool practice. He had so much to share with us today. Him and I really got along because he has a passion for good governance, as I do. And he has a long history of supporting his profession from a governance standpoint. Dr. Bartiz is excellent to speak with. I also love him because he has the coolest Instagram sort of channel, and he publishes very frequently about the at-home use of acupressure. I hope you really enjoy our session today. If you have comments, leave them in the section below. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the episode. Hello there. I'm here with Dr. Robert Bartiz. Hi, Dr. B. How are you?
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us. We're really grateful to have you on the show. Of course, we're called Personalized. We're talking about personalized medicine, and we've been working on the show for a very long time, and it's a real passion project for the whole team here. And when we were putting it together, we thought, okay, we need to have practitioners from a variety of occupations. We need to speak with people who are doing all sorts of different things, who are individualizing their care in ways that are supportive of their patient population. Your name came up quite quickly. You're quite popular in the integrative medicine field as a whole, and I know you're doing lots of speaking engagements and promoting our medicine to the world, and so we're really happy to have you here. So thanks so much for joining us.
It is definitely a pleasure to be with you and your viewers.
Tell me about how you got into the work you're doing. How did it all begin for you?
Well, funny you should ask. One day, many years ago, I was pondering what I was going to do with my life. I had done a lot of various jobs, and I was at one of those sort of crisis turning points. And I was talking to a friend, and in an instant, I said, I want to become a chiropractor. And it never really had been like a serious decision for me. So I turned my life around. I quit my job. Nobody really, that time ago, didn't really understand it. My friends didn't believe me. Even my parents, who were extremely supportive, didn't really want me to go off and do this thing. And so it was really one of those by yourself moments. And fortunately, I just, went ahead, and turns out later on, everyone said, yeah, great idea.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's how it started. And I began this love affair with natural healing. Now, I'm a conservative type person, and I absolutely believe in the modern miracles of medicine. And the fact is, if you look historically, lives are being saved, lives are being enhanced at a tremendous rate. And medicine has huge, huge assets, especially in emergency care. I mean, when I broke my foot after doing something stupid, I just wanted somebody to x-ray it, put a cast on it, and send me home. But in dealing with chronic conditions where the cause of the condition is not obvious, medicine provides symptomatic relief. If you can't find the cause, and if it's not going to be self-limited and go away on its own, then the only thing you can do if you're a caring provider is to provide symptomatic relief. The problem with symptomatic relief is it ignores the cause, even though it's a mysterious cause. And if the cause is ignored, it can get worse and worse over time. And I found that people in the holistic field kept looking for that cause and had a sort of a different span of view. And so this allowed us to help all these people who were unfortunately slowly getting worse with only symptomatic relief. I'll give you a perfect example is digestive problems, acid reflux. Very, very common issue. The medicines for that are among the top sellers worldwide, absolutely here in the U.S. And I know, up north with our friends in Canada, they have acid reflux too.
Oh, yes, we do.
And so the immediate or the proximate cause, as we like to say in medicine, is acid in the esophagus. And that acid is intended to digest a hamburger. It's intended to digest a steak. So in the stomach has special cells that protect it from this very powerful acid. But when the acid travels up into the esophagus is not so well protected. And so it begins to become digested. Now, the whole thing doesn't just disintegrate, but it becomes red, inflamed, and bad things happen. And so, well, I don't know, too much acid. Let me do an acid blocker and stop that acid. And you know something? It helps them feel better. However, in the holistic field, we see, well, this completely ignores the basic problem of why this occurred in the first place. And actually, it takes a thought. The answer isn't available in a second. It takes maybe 3 minutes of concentration to understand it. And some people who aren't willing to give it, and I say 3 minutes, a 5 or 10 minute explanation, they're never going to be helped from it, and then they're not going to come to us. But the answer is simple enough. The answer is that acid is there for a purpose, and that purpose is to digest meat. And so if the meat, now the protein, hits the stomach and is not digested at a certain period of time, it begins to rot. And when it rots, it produces gases and unpleasant juices. The stomach then rejects these, sending them back up. As they come back up, they drag with it acid. And so, acid reflux. So the solution for acid reflux actually is to give the patient some type of stomach acid support. So it's more acid, not less acid, that allows the digestive process to go forward. So if a person can understand this explanation, they go, well, damn, that seems simple. And does it cost anything? No. Just go down the store, buy a bottle of Bragg's apple cider vinegar or whatever you got over there, put a tablespoon of it in some water, drink it down after your meals, and 80% of the time, people are going to say, yeah, I'm feeling better. Now, another percent, they're going to need some professional advice. We have a few more tricks up our sleeves, of course, but that's just an example, and there are tons of them, but that's just an example of where we live or where I live in the natural healthcare system.
It reminds me of doctor as teacher, right? One of the principles of naturopathic medicine we talk about a lot, and one of the main reasons why I'm so passionate about this show is that tenet, right? Doctor as teacher. Take the 10 minutes, as you said, to explain this. It might not be the solution for 100% of people. There may be other things that need to be done. I've had some examples I've done this. Oh gosh, I have an obsession with the protocol you just explained. I may have done it hundreds of times. I've had 2 cases where it's been totally wrong and the people have felt awful, where it was unexpected, right? It wasn't your typical type of person where you thought, okay, well, this is definitely low stomach acid. That happened a couple times, but most of it, I might be at 98% of the time effective. So I love that example so much. But this is the thing, right? Doctor as teacher, you explain, okay, we have 5-10 minutes. In our program, we had this part of our class where they were teaching us how to draw diagrams that would be valuable to the patient experience. So if you were saying going through this, maybe you're talking about the upper sphincter of the digestive tract and how it can stay open, for example, and drawing that out for them so they can, visually experience what you're describing. But I just love that. Did you have this sort of vibe on day one? Like when you first became a chiropractor, were you practicing like this, or were you mostly doing symptomatic relief initially?
When I was a chiropractor, I was just in there adjusting the spine, back pain, neck pain, and I was just on the periphery hearing about this. It took me almost 15 years of working as a chiropractor to say, okay, I'm ready to take my patient care to the next level, which brought me to nutrition. And then another 10 years to bring me to your level, way up here, which brought me to the beautiful science of acupuncture and acupressure.
I love it. I love it. Well, I wouldn't call it my level. I mean, I'm terrible in pain management. People do not come to me for pain management because I don't have enough experience. I don't find that the protocols I have are that efficient. So you're coming at it from a different angle where I think of quite a powerful angle, right? Like I worked in a chiropractic office when I was young, like from the ages of 16 to 18, I was the assistant. And I loved it so much. Like it really got me in the integrative sort of zone. And that fellow was absolutely considering the cause, and he brought in all the traction tools. So he was doing a lot of adjusting, but he was finding that people were having to come back every couple of days for longer than the duration of the period that was set. So we started doing some traction and talking more about physical therapy, adding those in. It was a really great experience for me personally. I think it kind of set the tone for what I would do long term. But you're coming at it from the angle of like, okay, working with people in pain for 15 years, helping them feel good. And then it transitions to, okay, we can do a little better than feeling good. Maybe we could go for optimal. Would you describe it like that? And for people who are in the early stages of their career, like I think about myself maybe 5 years ago, how do you then make that leap? Do you go get retrained, or do you just expand the clinic? What was it like for you?
Again, I'm a very conservative guy. Although it seemed exciting to me, I went back, I got retraining, I got new certifications. If I'm going to treat myself or a family member, okay, fine. But if I'm going to professionally treat somebody, do my best to help them, take their money, accept their trust, I want to make sure that I've done my homework, I've completed my certifications, and I know what I'm doing. I almost joke that I spent more time going to school after I graduated college than before. Probably not quite exactly true, but I've got a lot of hours, in study.
How'd you pick the courses? What did you go for first, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I first just did more courses on chiropractic techniques, evaluation of chiropractic techniques, and then I just was enthralled with the magic of nutrition. I knew it could help people. So then I started taking nutritional courses, and I found different nutritional companies, and I searched around, and then I found one that I really liked, and I went out and visited their manufacturing operation. And then I found a company called the International Foundation for Nutrition and Health, and I did their 100 hours or 200 hours or 300, whatever it was, their certification program.
It's all a blur now.
Yeah, to become certified nutrition. And I loved them so much, I became friends with the director, and I became a member on their advisory board. They invited me out to San Francisco. I spoke at some of the big conventions out there, and I just had a great time.
Love it.
And so just to wrap it on the other end, so I decided at some point, I don't know, something about acupuncture, and I can't say what it drew me to it. But something drew me to it, and I looked at it a couple of times and didn't do it, but finally I found this course, and I found this fellow who actually brought acupuncture to the chiropractic profession way back in the 1970s it was. He was the guy who brought it to the U.S., and he was still teaching his courses. I was able to go down to Florida where he was teaching, and he was just on the level of retirement. I'm so glad I was able to do it. I did his certification course got my certification and had some great times visiting with them. And then it's just been, moving forward from there since.
Good for you. Good for you. It sounds like you make these decisions in these quiet moments, in these moments of reflection. Is that a process that you purposely go through? Are you just inspired? Are you just sort of in the moment? What is that like for you?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And I believe everybody has this capacity. The mind has a capacity to solve problems. I mean, we can think, I'm trying to think our way through this. Very arduous process. But the mind is different. And so, I think, okay, I'm worried about this today. I'm worried about it. I want to try to solve this. Maybe something big, something small. And 24 to 48 hours later, the answer will come to me. And I believe with your listeners, if they have a problem that they're trying to solve, if they just let their mind do the work it was intended to do, so they set the problem there, they can forget about it, don't worry about it, and the answer will come. And it's so funny. Sometimes it comes when I'm waking. I remember I used to swim in the pool. I'm doing backstroke like this. By gosh, I can't believe it. The answer came to me, and I was so distracted, and I bumped my head on the back of the pool doing backstroke. Gosh. But anyhow, it is quite amazing. And so I just release the power of my own mind. And the only other thing I want to say to your listeners is that, one, the answer will come to them. If they ignore the answer, or if they go like, I can't do that, they diminish that ability in their own mind. It becomes less powerful. And so I encourage them, whatever the answer is, just listen to it. Now, I don't know. I've never gotten illegal, immoral answers. I guess potentially a person can, and they have to exert their own moral authority, because the answer they want is something that will advance the cause of civilization and the cause of people. And so I guess there is some filter, but it's too hard. I can't do it. Those are unacceptable responses by me to the power of my mind.
I fully agree with you. Very well put. Thank you for that. I feel like so much of this show so far, for the episodes that I've recorded, has been us talking to young docs, new grads in all these professions. And so I wonder, like for me, I'm in the same spot as you. I tried to reflect on what kind of inspired me, and then when I was younger, to get into this, and I thought about optimal performance and my athletic background, and then it came to me that I would be very good in exercise physiology, and I found almost immediately that there was a device that was suitable to my clinic, and I started measuring resting and exercise metabolisms. I started doing VO2 max tests. So it sort of like happened in a couple of weeks, and literally I've been half my day for the last 3 years has been measuring metabolisms and fitness capacity. So it was kind of very much spur of the moment. I'm maybe not as in tune with you as how it actually came to be, but I love the way that you put it. And it reminds me of Don Miguel Ruiz and the 4 agreements and being impeccable with your word, not turning down the word. You know, maybe you could say no, but maybe you don't immediately say you don't know what you're talking about, because that might diminish that capacity long term.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
If you're a young grad just coming out into practice, say you're sitting in your office and you have no patients, you're kind of waiting for them to ring the doorbell, what would you encourage them to do to help expand their reach and help more people?
I'll tell you exactly what I did, because I think about this from time to time. And that was my exact situation. I was a new graduate. Great. I'm a chiropractor. I got a few patients. The real estate agent who helped me rent my suite, he sent me a couple of patients up, but I didn't have many. So I was sitting in my office, and I could have done anything. I could have read a magazine. I could have done anything. But I disciplined myself. I said, I'm not going to do anything during office hours except treating patients or promoting my practice. It was kind of boring for an hour or two. I forced that's it. I'm just going to sit at my desk and do nothing rather than do something. And so, as you know, nature abhors a vacuum. And so when I put that vacuum there, suddenly ideas came in. Oh, maybe I can do public speaking. Oh, maybe I should write a speech. Oh, maybe I should contact somebody and see if they want a public speaker. And this was, before the explosion of the internet. And so people actually like to go places and talk.
Definitely. They were out and about.
And so that's how it began. And for decades, I stuck with that. When I was in the office, that's all I would do, office stuff. And if I couldn't think of anything, I would do nothing.
That's great advice. I remember doing something similar before. And then I made the mistake. I made that mistake of saying, okay, I've created this 8-hour-a-day job for myself. What am I making per hour? And then I did it, and it was less than $1 because, you're just sitting there. So bad to do that. You don't want to think of it as a per hour type of job. You're on a mission to create positive change. And it sounds like that's what you did. You just stuck with it, and your practice grew from there.
That's exactly right. It was very exciting. Of course, practice is very exciting now because I'm building my next step, and I got to do the same discipline, and it's quite exciting.
Tell me about it. What is the next step for you? So you have this really cool background and lots of experience in education, and you've put it together into something unique, which is also powerful and a good thing for us to discuss at some point, which is that the people who succeed, I think the most people who combine skills and have expertise in multiple skills. But what's the next step for you, Dr. B?
The next step is to reach out way, way beyond my community to help people, and to help people in a way that is economically feasible. And that was my kind of two missions. And I started a YouTube channel. I was sort of, I wouldn't say struggling along, but I was trying to find my way. And after I learned about the power of acupuncture and acupressure, was able to execute that in my clinic, I said, whoa, I'm really getting the feel for this. And then COVID hit, and all my patients couldn't see me. Or some of them could see me, but some wouldn't come in, because in Massachusetts or in the U.S., chiropractors were considered to be part of essential services. So once I went through a few hoops and redid the clinic and did all these cleaning and everybody masks, we could see patients, but it was very limited. So I said, well, I'm going to take some of this time. I'm going to create YouTube videos showing people how to find and activate acupressure points. Then it took off from there. I'm happy to say we are officially a small channel. We have, at last count, about 43,000 subscribers.
Wow, good for you.
And we get about 200,000 views a month.
Wow, that's so great.
Yeah.
Teaching acupressure points and the value of them.
That's exactly right. So I will say that that's all organic. There's no paid advertising there. It's just me sending it out there, into the world, and people, jumping on it.
Oh, that's so great. It's such a powerful technique. I'd love to speak with you about a little bit about the technique and about the benefits that you've seen. I remember when I first graduated, maybe it wasn't when I was graduating, it was when I was about first year naturopathic college. So 13 years ago now, something like that. I had gone back to Nova Scotia for the holidays, and my cousin, who was 6 at the time, she had the hiccups and couldn't get rid of them. And I said, well, why don't you try this point on the wrist? I said, this is called PC6. You could try this. Why don't you give that point a press? And it went away in 10 seconds. I'm not saying this is a solution for hiccups. I didn't know anything about it at the time. But I said, why don't you just press it? It's harmless, right? And it went away in about 10 seconds. I thought, whoa, that really worked. That was amazing. There is something there. But you have so much experience. Can you share with us about how you got excited about acupressure? I know that you want to reach a large audience and something people can do at home, but what kind of benefits have you seen from this technique?
Well, it's so funny that you should mention hiccups, because I did do a video on hiccups, and my son, who works with me, he tried it on himself, says this thing works. So you never see anybody as happy as my son when somebody walks by who has hiccups. You go,
there you go. Check this out. I love
got
that.
to tell you a quick hiccup story, and then I'll get back to your main question. So I had a friend who called me up, and she said, could I help her husband? he was in a hospital, a major hospital in Boston, and he had a condition called arrhythmia. And arrhythmia is when the heart, instead of beating at the normal rhythm, just beats at an unusual rhythm. And this is potentially a serious condition because blood clots can develop and other unpleasant things can happen. So I said, well, this is the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Not only she can't go into the CCU, the cardiac care unit, but there's no way they're going to let somebody else go into the CCU, the cardiac care unit, for the sickest patients in the middle of COVID. I mean, it was completely locked down. So I said, well, how can I help this person? So I said, well, tell me the story. She said, well, about a week ago, he developed hiccups. This is how we get here. And they wouldn't go away. Now he has trouble eating. Now he has trouble sleeping. Can you imagine having hiccups for 4 days?
Oh, my goodness.
You can't eat. You can't sleep. You have trouble going to the bathroom. And so he became more and more anxious. And he felt his health was threatened. So he went to, the emergency department. They admitted him. While he was in the hospital, he now developed arrhythmia. So he's in the cardiac care unit. The cardiac specialist is saying, well, the treatment is what we call cardioversion. And cardioversion is like rebooting the heart. They basically stop the heart and restart it. Sounds scary to me. I know
Absolutely.
It's probably like, I don't know, flipping burgers to them. But to me, it sounds scary. And there is some risks. So, but they were concerned about doing the cardioversion on somebody who had hiccups. They were trying to decide whether or not they wanted to do it. So, so I said, okay, look, I want you to watch this video, then call your husband up and talk him through it. Can you believe this? And so, sure enough, she watches the video. I get the story the next day. She called her husband up because he's not watching the internet. She talks him through it. He starts doing the points. He starts feeling better. Now, the hiccups don't go completely away, but they feel better. They subside. The next day she talks to him. He had the best night's sleep ever.
Oh, nice.
Within 24 hours, arrhythmia stopped. Hiccups stopped. They moved him from the CCU, the cardiac care unit, to a regular bed. They kept him under observation for a day. Then they kicked him out to make room for somebody else. That was the end of it. That was just, how powerful is this?
That's incredible. What a great story. Holy, you probably treasure that story forever. That's such a good one.
I do.
Vitamin Lab revolutionizes personalized supplements, empowering health practitioners to create tailored supplement formulations that address each patient's unique needs. Bring personalized health to your practice and choose from over 200 professional-grade ingredients to create vitamin formulas that improve patient adherence and result in tangible outcomes. All ingredients are sourced from the world's most trusted suppliers, and Vitamin Lab provides hands-on support to help you formulate and launch personalization to your patients. Say hello to a new era of personalized supplement solutions. Go to getvitaminlab.com/personalized to save $100 off your first formula.
Oh my gosh.
So I will, if I may,
Yes, of course.
I'm going to attempt to explain in under 5 minutes 95% of acupuncture.
Please.
Joe, you say, damn, I'm going to, 85%. I'm going to attempt to explain to your listeners almost everything they need to know about acupuncture in 5 minutes or less. Is that a challenge?
That's a great challenge that you've posed to yourself, and I will accept your challenge and listen quietly.
So let's say this. Let's your listeners imagine a spring or a stream popping up right over here. And let's imagine that stream travels down right over here. If you can just imagine water traveling like this. Then imagine it branching, one branch coming up like this, and one branch going down the body, down the leg, down the lower leg, and finally reaching the second toe. So to my listeners, I'm saying, can you imagine water flowing that way?
We can.
Now, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a strong flow of water flowing that way. Can you imagine that?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So now imagine that a tree fell on the stream, and let's say the tree didn't completely block the water, but it did act like a dam. Can you imagine that?
Mm-hmm.
So now here's the question. If you have a dam over here and you have water coming down here, what's going to happen to the water above the dam? You tell me.
Going to build up?
That's right. Swelling, inflammation, heat, congestion. And what's going to happen to the plants below the dam, say on the leg, the vegetation?
They're going to be deprived.
That's right. They're going to be deprived of life-giving water, and they will become susceptible to injury or illness. So the purpose of the analytical portion of the acupuncture is to locate the barrier. And the purpose of the treatment, no matter how it's accomplished, is to remove the barrier. When the barrier is removed, the body's energies balance themselves. The acupuncturist is not attempting to add anything or take anything out of the body. The acupuncturist is only attempting to restore normal balance and allow nature, or God, if I'm allowed to say that, to heal the body as the body was intended to heal. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. So I did it in under 5 minutes. Does that explain?
Well under 5 minutes. Sir, very good.
Does that explain what the average person needs to know about acupuncture?
Oh, yeah, I would absolutely agree. We use acupuncture in the practice, and I've seen some really cool things happen with this therapy. But I love the way that you describe it because it's so incredibly naturopathic, to speak to my background a little bit, which is to really bring the balance to the body in one sense, to treat the whole person, to look at the body as from a systems approach. Instead of just thinking about one organ, you're thinking about the organ systems and how they relate to each other. I love acupuncture for that.
Yeah.
Are you using a specific type of diagnosis, for example, from traditional Chinese medicine to choose your points or to choose your acupressure? How do you choose the protocols that you're going to be using?
I just want to say one more thing. The other 5 to 10% that I didn't cover, that'll take your listeners 3 to 4 years to learn.
Okay. Right.
If they want that bit. I use a combination of things. You know, traditionally, healers get at least 80% of their information simply by listening to the person and the verbal clues that they give you. I also use something called muscle testing or kinesiology to identify certain points. So that's basically how I do it. You know, acupuncture is most famous because puncture, the needle. Somebody's gonna put a hole in somebody else. But my understanding of acupuncture is the most important thing is to correctly identify the spot that you wish to release with acupuncture. Mm-hmm. Whether you use a needle, whether you use moxibustion, which is the application of sort of like a heated incense, whether you use electroacupuncture, which of course wasn't available to acupuncturists 5,000 years ago, whether you use laser acupuncture, whether you use your finger, well, some non-penetrating instruments are less in importance. Now, I'm not saying which one is better, because research seems to indicate that under certain circumstances, one is better than the other. What I'm saying is the difference isn't that great. And so if I can teach a person who has migraine headache the points that they need to do, and they can now do those points 3 times a day for 30 days, that's 90 treatments in a 30-day period. That's a huge amount of power that they can exert. And so maybe they're not doing it perfectly. Maybe the needle would have done it better and faster, but 90 treatments in 30 days, we're going to get the job done. And that's really, what I'm trying to do. I always encourage people, if they have a local acupuncturist they're seeing, go ahead and see them. They're going to get advanced treatments. They're going to get stuff, I can't show them online, but then maybe they're going to use my stuff to work between their sessions with their acupuncturist.
Yeah, I love that. We in strength and conditioning, we use a term that's about heavy volume. So we try to send the stimulus not to maximum, but just shy of maximum, but very frequently. This is very effective for people who are not on anabolic hormones, for example, to try to send the signal for the muscle to grow or to adapt in a way that you're trying to make it adapt as frequently as possible, given the amount of time to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So when bringing the balance to the system, I can see this where here's the opportunity. Like, we can do a treatment now. You can do a treatment in a few hours because there's no recovery time.
Right. That's amazing.
My experience with acupuncture has been mostly in stress reduction, anxiety reduction, and for sleep improvements. People get such great results from that. Has that been your experience as well? It's such a good treatment for that?
Fabulous. Anxiety, stress. We've had some success, with fertility, migraine headaches, treating them, preventing them, stress headaches. I mean, the list goes on and on. I have a small stack of acupuncture textbooks, probably some of the ones, from college that someone in college might get. Basically, I work through those textbooks. Then if I'm going to offer something online, typically I'll search for recent studies, and there are hundreds and hundreds of studies to back up what we're doing. And then I'll put it out there. I'll say, great, go ahead and try this. I might say this is traditionally used for this, or I might say it's traditionally used, and recent studies have shown promising results. But the list goes on and on. And if I can give a quick shameless ad.
Of course.
If they go to my YouTube channel, just search DrBaritz. Then once they go to that channel, they can just pop in any condition they want. I have over 2,000 videos online right now.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah. And so I just want to bring this to people. I mean, I know everybody wants to do it. It's kind of a cliche to say it, but we all have a role in making a better world.
Definitely.
Some of us are lucky enough that our job allows us to do that, professionally.
Definitely. Well, I mean, I know you say that, but it takes so much work to hit 2,000 videos. It's really got to be a labor of love. Like, you really have to want it to reach that. So good for you for doing that. The other thing that we use acupuncture for a lot in our practice has been for peripheral neuropathy caused by conventional cancer care treatments, mostly chemotherapy, driving the peripheral neuropathy. But the other half of my practice is sort of helping people who have been diagnosed with cancer manage their treatment and make it through with less side effects and eat healthy and keep exercising. We still see so much numbness and tingling and pain in the hands and feet. Do you do any protocols for that? Is that something you see in your practice?
I don't see a ton of that, but I really hope that after we're through, you would email me or send me that protocol.
Of course. Because
I'd love to explore it, and I'm already thinking of some patients that I'm sure would benefit from it.
There's great evidence for it, and it can be really, really great. And it also, the other thing I like about acupuncture is it gives you time to connect, right? You can have a few minutes where you can chat, and there's no pressure to ask too many questions. It's more about like, here's what we're working on. We're trying to improve the energy flow, and you get to teach about that holistic nature of the treatment too, which is pretty cool. It sounds like if I were a patient of yours, I'm sure I'd get that 5-minute spiel while I was sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Dr. B, it sounds like, one thing that I know about your bio that really, really, brought me some encouragement when I was about to interview was your board work and your advocacy work. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in board work and giving back to your profession? How did that initially begin for you?
There are two types of organizations that manage professional practices. One is what you might call a trade organization. The purpose of that is to provide updates, best practices, and really to protect and enhance the profession. For me, that is the Massachusetts Chiropractic Society. The other organization is a state licensing authority, and that is a policing action in the executive branch of government, and they are there basically to protect the public by ensuring high standards of professional practice. So I started on the trade organization side, and I became the chairman of the local branch of the society, and did a lot of work with our chiropractors and to bring chiropractic better known in the community and promote the profession. Many years later, I thought, well, Actually, I got invited by a member of the board to join the board. And in Massachusetts, it's not a board you join. You would send in, not even an application, you would send in a letter of interest to the governor of the state. And the governor appoints board members for 3-year terms. And so, of course, he gets a lot of letters, and I'm sure he has an appointment secretary that helps them. But somehow or other, my letter, and I had a few recommendations from some senators and some other people, reached this to the top of the pile, and I was appointed to the board. And so that's how I came on the board. The board was a totally different experience. I went through training on how to be a state employee. Mm-hmm. I learned what judges have to learn. I mean, basically, we were an executive policing force with quasi-judicial powers. And so if a complaint came up, we would hear that complaint and we would investigate, or we had investigators, and then we would have our own little hearing and have our own little resolution. Now, if the person, and which sometimes resulted in a discipline. It could be loss of licensure, more likely retraining or suspension or something like this. And so the person could, of course, challenge that, and then it would go through the full, court system. But it was interesting because I had a chance to see probably the worst of my profession up close, and also to see how some docs were unwittingly taken advantage of by the worst of somebody else. And so it was really a useful, interesting time. I was officially what they call an unsalaried state employee.
Okay.
So that means I had all the responsibilities, but I never got paid for it.
No pay. No pay. It's funny how that works.
So, but anyhow, it was definitely a labor of love. When my term was up, they didn't appoint anyone right away, and so I ended up serving about 5 years on the board, and I cherish that time and the great docs that were.
So you did both time with the association, with your society, in the promotion of the profession, but also in the governance and the regulation of the profession.
Right.
Wow, cool. I didn't know you did both. That's so incredible. Yeah, I'm the chairman of the board of the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm in academic governance. I was the outgoing chair for our school here called Boucher Institute when we merged with the Toronto school. So now we have one name or one school. And I'm in that role, and I just love that role. It's nice to be connected to the profession in that way, a little bit different than what you've done, although I have interest in those types of organizations as well. But it's so fascinating to me that you had time on the advocacy side, because the society is all about the promotion, right? And the growth of the profession.
Right.
And then in the governance side, I mean, you learn things about the practice that I'm sure were a bit eye-opening to you, because it can be completely out of the realm to be dealing with complaints, for example, the typical realm. So in taking that experience that you had, then you transitioned to this exciting thing, which was in the nutrition side. Right? Was it a governing body, or was it an association for nutritional education?
It was an association, really like a trade association, if you will.
And that's an advisory board.
Yeah, so I'm an advisory board member of the International Foundation for Nutrition and Health.
And what's that work like?
It's actually fairly light. I've done some seminars for them. They had some publications. They wanted a little editorial work. I promoted them various ways in reaching out to members of our profession. And when I do professional postgraduate education, I often promote them because I believe in what they do. And I believe that, members of our profession who want to take the next step, this is a great way to get their training. So that's basically, my role.
Oh, I like that. Here's an avenue for people in your profession to expand their knowledge, and you're kind of the promoter of that avenue. Oh, I'm right. Into that. That's cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about your practice? I'm interested in bringing this thing full circle. Now that we know your education, your experience, what's a holistic approach look like to you? Are you incorporating chiropractic, nutrition, and acupuncture every day with every person? What's your typical day like and patient experience like?
Good question. So the actual chiropractic, it was just a little too much for one person to do.
Yeah.
And so I had a long-term associate, and he took over the actual physical chiropractic treatments. And then I focus on nutrition, herbal therapy, acupressure in the office, and my online, keeping that YouTube channel up and
Smart.
running.
Yeah. Building out the team so you can have this team approach.
So typical day, somebody might call me. There might be somebody who found me on YouTube, and they say, okay, the videos look interesting, but I need additional help. Can you consult with me? Or it might be somebody in my community. I'm extremely well known in my community now who has a problem. Maybe they've been driving by my clinic for 10 years, 20 years. They see my son, they go, okay, now I'm ready.
Now's
And
the
so
time.
they're going to come in. I'll do typically a 1-hour consultation and treatment. About 30 minutes is spent going through every part of or a lot of their life, their main issues. Then I get them right on the table. I analyze the weak areas. I provide nutritional supplements, and then I provide their first acupressure treatment, show them how to do it, and sell them one of these little, see if I can find one here. Sell them one of these little instruments. I don't know if you must have seen this before. It's got a little shock absorber built in here.
I haven't seen that before.
This is a Teishin is what we call it.
Okay.
And it's made out of brass, so it conducts energy very well. It's spring-loaded. And so there's a little ball here. You're not going to make any holes in anybody's skin, but the person can, take this and treat points like this at home. So we show them how to do the treatment. We give them one of these little things. We send them home, and that's how it goes. Then they'll usually typically come back in 2 weeks. I'll do a short interval history. I'll recheck their program. I'll recheck their acupuncture. I'll either give them new points or continue with the current points, and that's the way it goes.
I love it. Can you say the name of that device again? I need to get one for my kids.
It's called a Tei, T-E-I, Shin, S-H-I-N. You possibly could get one from my website if you go on my website, drbarretts.com. But I'm sure they're available many other places.
Well, thank you for that. I could see the value, right? Like for at-home treatments, of course, but also for young ones, because acupressure can be so valuable for young ones when it's taught properly. I'd like to have one of those.
Yeah.
Very neat. Okay, so that patient experience, that sounds fascinating. Are you doing any lab testing in your practice? Is that a part of what you do?
I actually only do a little bit of lab testing. So in the last year, I got into DNA testing.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get the DNA test results, you have a total amount of information that you can use. And I'm going to cycle back right now to the beginning, customized medicine. So glad you brought this. But with the DNA test that we use will also tell us what lab test the person should have. DNA cannot say if you've developed a disease, but it can say these are the things to look out for. So then we send them out to get those lab tests.
Oh, that's a smart way of doing it. Gosh, I've been obsessed with maybe 5 SNPs. And, the lab I use sort of gives the human trials and the clinical, how relative the SNPs are clinically, gives a rating for each of them. And so I only usually focus on a few because the clinical value is only there for a few and the research is only there for a few. But I never considered, okay, what would be if we were looking at outside and individualizing this genetic test for a person? Well, then we could follow it up with objective assessments. That would make sense. I love that approach. That's super smart.
When we're back offline, I'm going to let you know the lab I use. We test 92 genes, 92.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of information is massive. But I would like to cycle back to customized medicine. So from this test, it actually shows us the vitamins that they need because it shows us the vitamins that they are genetically programmed not to absorb very well. So the program does give us the foods they should eat. This is your diet. So if you're eating those foods, you still need a little supplementation because, for example, you might have trouble digesting B1 or choline or something like this. And so that allows us to put a vitamin protocol together that will then exactly match their genetic needs. And there are companies out there that allow you to create a custom supplement. Maybe I'll give them 5 or 8 supplements, and they'll create a capsule with all that in there. And they'll be maybe, so, okay, take 3 capsules a day. Every capsule has it all, but to get the full dose, I take 5 capsules a day. That's remarkable.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. That's Vitamin Lab. That's what we do. I'm obsessed with my formula. Like I made myself a formula that's a powder. And basically what I did was I took what I like to have pre-exercise, but then I took out the stimulants because I couldn't find it on the market. And so I took that approach where I just make myself something custom, but take out the stimulants because it made me feel unwell, especially if I was exercising at night, for example. And that was a big win for me, and I can't stop talking about it because it makes me feel so good. But I love the genetic approach that you're taking. And so then you have these objective labs that you could use to track your results to see what benefit a person is getting, but also I'm sure you're chatting subjectively too.
To track your results, but more to determine what else the person may need. So again, there's genetics, which we understand that's your DNA, and that was established the moment of conception. At the moment of conception, with the joining of your mother and father, your genetic code was established, and it never changes from that day forward. So that's genetics. The thing called epigenetics, epi means above, and so epigenetics is how those genes are expressed. So you can think about it like a set of switches. Okay, there's the bald gene, let's say, and there's the hypothyroid gene, and there might be the acid reflux gene if there was one. Okay, so will that gene activate or will it not activate? Just because you have the gene doesn't mean it will activate. Many things determine whether or not it will activate. And so those are things that you can do something about. For example, let's say a person has the lung cancer gene. Okay, well, let's say they've never worked around chemicals, they don't smoke, their parents never smoked, they're not in the high pollen area. Chances are that gene won't activate. Let's take another person. Parents smoked, so grew up with smoke all around him, smoked all his life, works in a high chemical environment where he's sucking in toxins. My guess is that gene's going to activate, And so when you get the information from this test, say, great, what can we do to deactivate or prevent from activating certain genes? And we do that with diet. We do that with our friends at Vitamin Lab because those vitamins are going to help the modification of gene expression. That's not my opinion. That's not Vitamin Lab's opinion. That's simply the science. People don't have to believe me. Go on Google. Go look it up for yourself. Look at the science, and then you'll see.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like it too. I'm totally into it. Do you get any fear with that? Like when you're teaching, this is the thing I always have to dance around. Like, so we're talking about epigenetics now, which is going to be a little bit difficult to explain, but you did it so eloquently and super fast, which is awesome. But do you get any fear when you're explaining this? Like, okay, now we're talking a lung cancer gene, for example. Is the person generally saying, okay, this is it? Am I toast? Or are they empowered, inspired by this? How can a practitioner communicate this effectively?
Every practitioner has to confront serious results they find in a patient. Something you see on the x-ray that is heart-wrenching for me and will be devastating for the individual. How are you going to explain that to the individual? The practitioner who finds it has a responsibility. But how you explain it, it's like you can say, well, this is it, make plans, make sure you get your affairs in order. You know what I mean? You could say that, or you could say, we found something and it's not looking good. I want you to, consult with your physician about that. And we're going to do everything we can to support you. Okay, well, they're still not feeling fabulous, but, the guy's going to support me. Well, there's something to support. And you know something? There is something to support. In my last couple of minutes, if I may, I'm going to give you a story. A patient, and this was early in my nutrition practice when I was still possibly scared by my patients. The guy comes in. He says, well, I've got kidney failure. I'm like stage 4 or stage 3.5, bad. He says, I do not want to go on dialysis. I'm going to give you 3 weeks to fix me so I don't have to go on dialysis. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Darn. Yeah.
You know, I got something to lose because I have a reputation in my community.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, if you are, well, I don't know, maybe I needed patience that day, or I was just feeling, something. I said, okay, I want to take this case on. And something? He never did go on dialysis. It was remarkable.
Oh, my goodness.
Because I gave him the protocols that I hoped and thought would help. And then he went back to the physician, and his numbers were closer, not in range, but they moved away from the red line. 3 weeks later, they moved away from the red line. And, 5 weeks later, they move away from the red line. And he showed me this picture, and I didn't get his release, so I can't show it to anyone. But it was a beautiful picture of him and his grandson. And he had the chance to spend his time with his grandson in the last, probably, I think we gave him, I won't say we gave him, but nature gave him, another year, of healthy, life with this beautiful little baby grandson.
So inspiring.
Yeah. You can't neglect the power of what we do. Sure, we have to respect other professions and what they do, but, you can't neglect taking the opportunity to try to help somebody.
Completely. I love that. That's an excellent way to end our episode today. But before I let you go, I have to ask you one question in the spirit of personalization. Can you tell us something about yourself that most people don't know?
Oh, man, I knew you were going to ask me that question.
You knew that one was coming.
Well, I don't know if most people know this or not, but I consider myself to be a very determined individual. When I hit a problem, I don't stop. Now, let me say this. Sometimes that problem can't be solved and you have to go around it to get to where you go. So you do have to get to your goal. But I would consider that I'm a very determined individual, and I think that is a big part of my success.
I love that. With a kind and gentle soul. I think that's a fair thing to share. Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Dr. B. Where can our listeners connect with you online? You already gave your YouTube channel, right? Dr. Bartiz?
Yep. They can actually reach me if they go to my website, drbaritz.com, and then they go to the Contact Us page. Just send a message, and I look at every one of those messages that come through.
Love it. Thanks so much for sharing, Dr. B. I hope you have a great day, and I just really appreciate your time. Thanks again.
All right. Bye now. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's discussion. What about today's podcast resonated with you? Be sure to tag at Dr. David Dizer and at Get Vitamin Lab. If you're learning from and enjoying this podcast, please let us know by subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow the show on Spotify and Apple. And don't forget to leave us a review. It's the best way to support our podcast, and it helps others find us. To learn more or book a demo to explore what personalization could do for your practice, please go to www.getvitaminlab.com/personalized.